Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. Today, I have Tiffany Michaels from Sparrow Homeschool here to chat with her about her new curriculum. We have met on the road and absolutely hit it off, and she has such an amazing product. I couldn't wait to share it with you. So, welcome, Tiffany.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on, and I'll get to it in a little bit, but I have my own agenda behind it. But do you want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your business?
Okay. I started Sparrow Homeschool about 3 years ago. I I love writing, and I just at that point I felt like God was really telling me to write. And so I sat down and I started a curriculum. I was loving it. And then my son had to take Pacific Northwest history, my older son, and I couldn't find anything for Pacific Northwest history. We live in
Oh, you
Washington
hit
State.
on my agenda.
Right. We live in Washington State at the moment, and one of the required subjects is Washington State history, but there is no curriculum on the market for it. So schools use a curriculum called Since Time Immemorial, and there are some older textbooks. Most people just piece together their curriculum for that.
I feel
And
your pain on that one.
yes, so for my oldest son, I found this older Christian textbook. It was black and white, and he used it. He did okay with it. It was kind of boring, not all that interesting. And my younger son was hitting about seventh grade. And in Washington State, that's about when you do Washington State history. I mean, you can do it
Mhm.
anytime, but that's usually when people do it. And so I was like, there is no way I'm going to get my younger kid through this boring book. So I'm
Right.
like, okay, I'm just going to set my other curriculum aside for a bit, and I'm going to hop over and spend a little bit of time with Pacific Northwest history, and I'll come back to the other one in a few months. Well, it took me 2 years to write the
Yeah.
Pacific Northwest history curriculum.
Hey guys, I know that we are always looking for ways to connect our homeschool kids with our communities and find things to do when we're out and about. Plus, it is so important to be connecting with like-minded families and those that have the same interests that we do. That's why I'm so excited to announce the new app that just launched. Basecamp Ed is a community-based platform for parents to find like-minded families and dedicated teachers in their area. Whether you homeschool your children, are curious about it, or simply want to build a community of extracurricular activities, Basecamp Ed has you covered. Connect with local parents to create co-ops, form groups for your children's interests, and use the calendar to schedule events with ease. Teachers and coaches can also create profiles to list their credentials for parents to find a way to supplement subjects and activities. Homeschooling was never meant to be done alone. It takes a village. Build it with Basecamp Ed. Take advantage of this free resource and download it today. You can also follow them on Instagram and Facebook at Basecamp Ed app for the latest updates. And you can get the link to that in the show notes for this episode.
So, and then my name, Sparrow Homeschool, actually, when I felt like God was telling me to write, I didn't even think about a name. That was the name. You know, like his eye is on the sparrow. I felt like he was telling me to write. Oftentimes I felt like he was directing me, like which direction and where he wanted me to go with it. And I'm just like, there's no other name. It's Sparrow Homeschool, and that's what it is.
I love that driving force, and I love when people take those messages from God. It's it's actually kind of like I get like some weird looks sometimes where um people, I tell them something like I graduated from college and my pastor told me like, "Oh, praise Jesus." And I thought I worked really hard for that. And I've always thought of it as more he gave us free will for a purpose or
Mhm.
for a reason. And I'm like, I always say I'm so proud of someone for listening to the messages he sent you and using your free will for that.
Mhm.
Because he does it all on purpose, but some people don't listen.
Mhm. It's true.
And that's always I love hearing those stories because when I wrote my curriculum, I had a similar story to you. Um I wanted agriculture for my kids and there was nothing and it was piecing it together and none of them hit home to what the average homeschool homestead kind of kid is doing. It was very vocational, which is of course it's a CTE program through the National Ag and Natural Resources, and that's great, but that's not what I was wanting to teach. I wanted to teach kids like
Mhm.
truly how to grow their own food. And I was like, and I have really struggling learners. One of my boys is absolutely convinced that I created math to ruin his life. And so I was really trying to think of ways to bring agriculture to them in a way that they wanted to learn.
Mhm.
But I wasn't even thinking about a curriculum. I was just chewing
Mhm.
on this, like, how do I teach these really struggling kids hands on? And on the flip side, I was doing real estate and I hated it.
Mhm.
And I would have to drive the 45 minutes into town to do my office time. And so I was trying to think
Mhm.
of ways to make my blog on healthy eating or homemade, making everything homemade, pay. And I was like, I couldn't think of a way to do that. And I remember exactly where I was at on the road, what podcast I was listening to, everything. And it was like a download from God. Like I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I went to the office and I wrote it all out like the whole time. Cause let's face it, in real estate, you sit there in the office and do nothing most of the time. And I got home and I said, honey, I have a really good idea. And I was waiting for his, like, another one of your crazy ideas. It's not happening. And I told him, and he goes, get in the chair. I'll get you a nice tea. Start writing. That's an amazing idea. And
Nice.
so I remember that feeling of like knowing exactly
Yeah.
what I needed to do and how I needed to do it.
Yes. And there have been many times since then that I will like I'll get overwhelmed or I'll be like, this is too much. Like I can't do this. And then it's like, you know what? I get this feeling like, no, you just need to stick with it and just keep going.
Like asking yourself, what did I take on?
Yeah. Sometimes usually it's when like my
Yep.
printer, isn't working before a conference or something like that. But
Oh,
yeah, that's super
yeah,
fun.
that's always, yeah. Or like my conference last week that we fly all the way out there and my books don't show up and three tornadoes hit and the whole conference gets shut down. And I'm like, well, that was interesting. But
Yeah.
I was joking that I've been pushing myself really hard lately. And my husband kept telling me I needed a break. And I wouldn't take one. I wouldn't take one. I got pneumonia. I was in the hospital, the whole shebang. And we go out there, and I'm really like, I was feeling better, but I wasn't 100%. I was still on breathing treatments and stuff. And then three tornadoes hit and shut down the whole thing. And my husband goes, well, you didn't listen when God gave you pneumonia, so he gave you a tornado. And then he made me like sit in bed the rest of the weekend and like brought me food and stuff. So
Oh,
it
that's
was very
sweet.
sweet.
Yeah.
So what was like, do you have a background that um involved history or was this just like I need to do this and so I'm gonna like dig into it?
Hmm. So I actually have a background in social work, which
Okay.
is kind of interesting. It's not that far different from education. I mean, it is, but it's not. I actually went back and forth in college about which one I wanted to do. I ended up getting a master's in social work, and I worked before I had kids. I worked with teens, like at-risk teens. So I worked at juvenile justice. I worked with pregnant parenting teen moms. I worked
That's
in
hard work.
um, it is. It is. I worked at a school to like try to prevent school dropout. Uh, but then when I had kids, that actually is relevant to the writing though, because in social work, there's so much writing that you do. There is so much research. So I had a high focus on research, a high focus on communication, a high focus on small groups. Like all of those prepared me really well for like what I'm currently doing.
I can understand that for sure. my degree was in agriculture, but I worked writing like work instructions and things like that in food
Mhm.
plants. So I was always writing in like very technical writing.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, the very academic writing and I actually spent quite a lot of time when I first started writing thinking about my references, like my sources. What sources did I want to use? Because I wanted to make sure that they were absolutely credible. I wanted to be able to completely defend anything that I used, but I also wanted it from a
hmm
creation-based perspective. So, I had to, so I added in Institute for Creation Research and Answers in Genesis, a lot of more academic Christian research as well.
My friend's really struggling with that right now because she's writing a science-based curriculum on um, creation.
Yeah.
And I think you met her. You guys talked about it more. I'm really bad about remembering what the name of her curriculum even is. It's like something design.
Oh, was she the one that had the booth like in Seattle in the back corner?
Oh no,
Um,
that was the Pine and Prairie. She was with me in Idaho and was working my booth with me.
it wasn't her, it was someone else. Anyway,
Hmm.
I thought it was
But yeah,
I
she has
thought
a
it was some
science,
design.
anthropic design. That's what it is.
Okay.
And she's really struggling with that piece of getting references that both hit the science side of it and the Christian side of it.
What I found is a lot of it is interpretation. And
Hmm
so, like the secular stuff will say like what happened, but then they attribute it to, millions and billions of years. Whereas, that's where I would pull in the creation science. And I actually did a lot of research on like various places. And I found a lot of articles from the couple of places that I just mentioned. And then there were a couple others that were like solid academic research. And I felt really good about using.
That's awesome. I really, it's hard as a curriculum writer, and I opted with the Homestead science curriculum to not have any references because it all came from my experience.
Mhm.
And even though I did do a lot of reading to kind of bring it all together, what I
Mhm.
did is on the site, I have like optional reading, and I put in there, I read each of these books and it helped,
Mhm.
form the way I wrote this. And if you want to dig deeper into chickens, here's a
Oh,
book that I
nice.
think is great.
Mhm.
And but as I'm moving further into my other writings, that is something that I'm coming up against is how to properly and
Mhm.
cite things and find them in the way that I want because I write all not secular but just neutral.
Mhm.
Not for any other, not as against anything as I just don't I sell to a lot to public schools
Right.
and also there's no reason to talk about one or the other when we're just talking about how you feed an animal and calculate that.
That's true.
It's just
Mhm.
brass tacks farming.
Yep.
And I write a lot of character into it, which is a beautiful place for families to add their devotionals into and stuff. So,
Mhm. Yeah.
but yeah, I can see that being a challenge for a lot of writers, especially when we weren't trained to be educators.
Mhm. Right. Whereas with my social work background, and like I said, I had a high focus on research. And so that
Mhm.
didn't feel too overwhelming to me. I actually have 30 pages of research, like references in the back of my second book. And it's like that teeny tiny little
Oh
font. So
my
there's
goodness. Yeah.
so much, so many things that I cited
I'm
back
working
there.
on one right now that's going to have a lot of references, and it's not overwhelming to get the references because, as a science major,
Mhm.
we did a ton
Right.
of that. I'm afraid I'm going to do it wrong in my book for
Okay.
like the legalities of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, as long as their name's there, I'm good.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, when you started putting together, so what is the requirement was Pacific Northwest history or just
It
Washington?
was Washington State history, but
Okay.
I decided I wanted it to be broader. I wanted to not just learn about the one state, but I
hmm
also wanted to learn about like Oregon and Idaho as well and do a Pacific Northwest. I thought that
I
would be more interesting, more relevant to more people.
I really love that. In Idaho, we don't have any requirements for what we
Mhm.
teach,
Mhm.
which is really nice.
Right.
It's, especially nice for parents like me that I'm making sure they're getting what they need, but that I don't have to like fit all these little boxes.
Yes. Hmm.
Um, but one of my favorite histories in school was learning California history when I went to school in California.
Mhm.
And it was one of my favorites. Like we pretended we were gold miners and stood in water and we made like in ice water and we made our missions that was like a big deal. You make your missions in the fourth grade, and like I can talk to any of my friends in California and they remember making their missions.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, even my husband was 4 years older than me and grew up 5 hours away, and he made his mission in the fourth grade.
Mhm.
And so we were talking about it, and we're like, we really want to teach our kids uh like maybe Idaho history,
Mhm.
especially before like right now we have two 16-year-olds and then a 5 and a 7-year-old. And we're like, how do we teach this all together where they all enjoy it? And
Mhm.
I did the research to try to find a curriculum and I couldn't, I mean, there's a few
Yep.
state curriculums out there, but they have like one page for your state.
Mhm.
I tried to see if I could just get a copy of the state's curriculum for Idaho, but most curriculums aren't textbooks anymore. They're all via
Right.
online versions and stuff.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, what am I gonna do? So I mean, as a family, we do a ton of like we hit up every museum we can find and
Yeah.
we drive way out in the mountains in the middle of nowhere. They're like those towns that people don't even know exist. And we find a
Mhm.
cemetery and we get out and we read every single headstone and like we do it in a different way. And we've done a lot of different history type things where we read In the Footsteps of Crazy Horse. And
Mhm.
then I had the kids, based on the story, find all the spots on the map. And then we went on a road trip and went to all those spots.
Nice.
So we definitely do more of a hands-on style of learning, but
Mhm.
not growing up in Idaho, I didn't have where I could just make something for Idaho.
Mhm.
I could if I really wanted to do the research,
Right.
but I was starting to
Right.
get
And
really
that's a lot of
fresh.
research.
It's a lot, yeah. And I was
Mhm.
starting to get a little frustrated with the lack of resources for states. And
Mhm.
I was so happy when I met you at that homeschool conference this year, because not only do you have a high school level, you have the little kids level, where this year
Mhm.
all of my kids, 5 to 17, are going to
Mhm.
be able to some extent learn together.
Yep.
In fact, I'm actually planning on having my high schoolers lead the class and teach their little siblings, and I'll just kind of be there to observe and fill in blanks and stuff.
Nice.
And I'm really excited for how that's going to work. So, you want to tell us a little bit about what your curriculum looks like? Like, because it is, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. Please tell me you have some to show us in the YouTube.
Well, I do have it next to me.
Because if not, I will text a kid right now to bring me my copies.
I do have it. So this is the front cover of my first book. My main set is two books. It's book one and book two.
So, anybody who's
And
listening and you're not on YouTube, hop over to YouTube so you can see how beautiful these are.
so the reason they are two books instead of one is because there's over 500 pages of content and it was thick and overwhelming as one. As two, it's perfect because they're not, it's not
Yeah.
that bad. And then once you open it up and start looking inside, it was really important to me that it be beautiful.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be eye-catching and interesting.
Well, the Pacific
So
Northwest is stunning, so you want to feel that.
yes, so I start with this at the beginning of the book because there's one location, I believe it's in Idaho, that you can go to that you can see all three states from one spot. And I thought,
Really? I know there's a spot like that in Oregon where you can see like Washington and Nevada, but oh, and you can see California from there too.
yeah, so this is Field Springs State Park. It was just past Lewiston, I believe.
Okay. I'm writing that down
So,
because that sounds like a place me and my kids need to go. What
there's
was it?
it
Field
was
what?
Field Springs State Park.
Okay.
Honestly, there's nothing there. All it is a mountainside, and I couldn't even tell which, I'm like, I don't even know. Like, I know I can see all three states. I don't know where they are, but my brother was with me and had a drone. And so he took pictures and he figured
Oh,
out where the
fun.
states were for me. So that was helpful. So at the beginning of the curriculum, I do have the table of contents that says, what is in the curriculum. It starts with the worldwide flood and goes through the present day. And by the present day, I mean it ends with the Seattle riots. So fairly recently.
I think that's really important to include those because we've had a huge shift in
Mhm.
a lot of things.
Right, right. And I do my best throughout the whole curriculum to present it in a balanced way. Instead of just one side or the other, I try to present both. And so, like the Indigenous peoples, they really were treated terribly. But I didn't want to present it as, these evil white people, because it was like their mindset. Like, and so I really approached it with how were the people able to treat other people in this way?
You
And
know,
so then I went,
I'm reading the Indigenous history of the United States right now, and I've learned I want to circle back to that. So go ahead. Sorry.
hmm, yeah, no, I was just saying, oh, I don't know what I was saying
Both
actually.
sides. Sorry. Both
Oh,
sides.
okay. Oh yeah, both sides. So with I really wanted to focus on how can one group of people like do terrible things to another group of people. And it's really it's a process. It's how they start talking about those people. It's uh how they start portraying them in the media. They convince themselves that these other people are terrible people, and then if this other group of people are just like these evil awful people, then you don't really have to consider your treatment of them. And so I really focused on that perspective more than like good or bad.
Hmm. I think that's really important. What I didn't want to forget on my Indigenous piece too. So I love ag history. That is that's always been like a side passion of mine. And I have a stack of about 100 books sitting next to my chair right now that I'm working through for a project I'm working on that are all ag history. And it's really exciting for me. But I started reading a book, something about like a farm in the heartland or something like that. And I had been really excited to read this one. I had a beautiful cover and it really drew me in as like a farmer.
Mm-hmm.
And then almost the entire book was about how terrible the indigenous people were treated in that area. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not what it was. That was not like in the examples of the book or the back cover or anything about it. It was like talking about farming in the heartland. And I was like, this feels really weird to me. And it kept really frustrating me. Not that
Right.
I think it's okay how Indigenous people were treated, but I don't feel like that's the whole story.
Yeah.
And one of them was that they, the people in that area, they would travel in like a circle, like their yearly migration was in a circle.
Mm-hmm. There's seasonal migrations.
Yeah. And the settlers would come in, and in the book, they call it and stole the land away from the natives. And I was like, but if they came to this area for the first time and nobody was there, and it's this nice,
Mm-hmm.
cleared, open area, and that, their government said, we own this land, you're allowed to live there, it's really hard
Mm-hmm.
to blame the individual settler.
Yeah.
And I was really frustrated with this book. And one of my friends had surgery, and so I'd gone to her house, and she was like sleeping on the couch most of the day. And so I was going to just really try to push through and read this book and have good feelings about it?
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept getting more and more frustrated. And her and I got to talking when she woke up at one point, and in her drug-induced like conversation, um, what we realized is that the settlers of that time were being very harshly judged by the morals that we have now.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that really opens my eyes to, because I've always felt like, how am I supposed to feel? Like honestly, like I'm white. but like my whole dad's side of the family is Native, but I grew up white, I'm white.
Mhm.
And so I
Mhm.
was always like, what side do I feel on that? I don't feel like I have any of like the history on my Native side and stuff. And I was like, I've always felt like weird about that one. Like, how was I supposed to feel? And when it clicked for me that like we're judging people based on the morals we
Mhm.
have now, I realized like
Mhm.
it's okay to not hold animosity towards like the individual white settler
Mhm.
versus it is still okay to say it was terrible what happened to Indigenous people in America,
It was. It absolutely was.
but to like not have that own personal guilt about it
Yeah.
because I wasn't the one who did it, and it was like, wow, that was such a nice like realization for me. So even though I never finished that book because I couldn't stand to read another word of it,
Yeah.
I think it made me grow as a person anyways. So
And you still gain something from it.
yes. So that was kind of so if you're ever reading a book and you hate it, find the silver lining.
Yeah, that's true.
So you also have a younger version, right? Or
I
are you
do,
going to
but
show us the workbook?
actually, I don't think I actually showed you any real pages of this.
Oh,
So let me just show you a couple. I'm just going to flip a little bit. This is Ice Age animals. So it starts with the flood, the Ice Age, the landscape, and then plate tectonics. So here's just a few pages. You can see it is colorful. There's pictures on like every page. So yes, and I do have two sets. So like I mentioned, my main set is the two books. There is a workbook that I don't have next to me. Of course, I didn't put that one here. And then there's 24 chapters in my main set. Each chapter has at least one hands-on activity. This is the hands-on activities book. So you mentioned your kids really
okay.
like hands-on.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I think it's great having your kids, like putting your older kids in charge of doing like all the curriculum with your youngers.
Hmm.
And it would have been nice to outsource some of these activities to your older kids.
Yeah,
So,
because I
but
don't want to do them.
right? Yeah. Yeah, that's why I did it as a co-op. I did all the hands-on here and invited 12 to 15 kids every week to come to my house to do this piece with me, and
Oh,
then they did the reading
fun.
at home. And it was really fun. We made a day out of it. So we did a couple of other subjects too, and then we did this in the afternoons, and we had a really good time with
That's
it.
how I did my survival. I taught it at the co-op first and like
Hmm.
worked out all the details. Okay, one second. There is a thunderstorm rolling in and I
Oh
have
no.
my windows open and it's getting like worse and worse. Like the wind is whipping through. There's even rain coming in like through my windows.
Wow.
Yeah.
So not quite the storm that you had in Michigan, but
No, it's definitely, I've been watching it come across the valley this whole time. And like, I've even texted my husband at one point, like, I just saw lightning hit in the valley. Get the boys in.
yeah.
So sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. So there's at least one hands-on activity for each chapter in the hands-on activities book. And then you were asking about my elementary set.
Uh-huh.
So I, when I was at conferences, I had a lot of families that were really interested in my main set, but my main set is really for like grades 6 and up.
Hmm.
However, if you have younger siblings, it totally works for all of them. But I have been recommending that families wait until their oldest is a little bit older before they start it with everybody.
Hmm.
And so then I had a lot of families who were like, well, I love this. I want this for my littles. And so I said, okay, we can do that for you. So this is my elementary set. I just love the baby wolf. Both of my covers, I didn't go looking for them. I came across the pictures and I'm like, okay, that's my cover. That's my cover for that. This is my cover for elementary. But this is
When you know,
basically,
you know.
you do, you absolutely do. And then it's really easy. So yeah. So, but this is like I said, my elementary book. It is basically book one, but it's a little simpler. There's only 2 or 3 pages per day. There's geography. There's more art in this one. So just a small, like a slower pace. And it's about 70% of book
Oh.
one of my main set.
I texted my daughter to bring me all like the bag of curriculum
Oh,
from you
nice.
guys so I could have anything you didn't have handy. And she brought me the workbook and a planner. So
Okay.
She
Well, at
thought
least
I
you
just wanted like a
have
picture, so. But she's running down to the basement because her bedroom window is open.
one. Nice.
So yeah, you have all these great activities, but you have these beautiful manipulatives too.
We do. So my friend who comes with me to my conferences, Tima Alleman, she makes all of the maps for me, and I do have some of those with me. And we actually have a new map that we just put out, I think 1 or 2 conferences ago, that goes with the elementary set. But this is the map that goes with
Love
the
it.
main set. There's 24 pins which go with the 24 chapters. So at the end of each chapter, there's a spot for the pin of somewhere that was talked about that week. And so I don't know if you can see the pins. They're gold on here, and
It's a
it's
very
beautiful.
stunning, beautiful, it's all
Mhm.
wood.
Yeah. Yeah, it is
Yeah,
just beautiful. She did an amazing job with it. Pretty much I'll say, Tima, this is what I want.
that's
And
awesome.
her, she's been able to come up with it. So I'm very pleased. And then with for the younger set, we have a cork board, which is new. And this one could also be used like as you're traveling. Some of our families are choosing to use this. So when they go to museums and locations, they'll put a pin in that spot to keep
Oh,
track of
that's
where they,
awesome.
but it also, we do have a page that says like where you can put a pin if you want to use it as a lesson tracker for the younger curriculum. And my friend Tima also did the cutouts for me. These are they're sets of cutouts. They have 7 of the activities from the activity book are in the cutouts pack. And so they're all packaged up. They're things like wheels for a wagon. So, here's the wheel. Can't see it very well, but there's 4 wheels. Some of the activities have, various different cutouts. So this one is a teepee. So basically the kids either watercolor or acrylic paint the background of a scene, and then they put one of these on top of it, and it looks so good. And I
Oh
just love
yeah.
it. Yeah, I love it. Like for a lot of reasons. Kids, they love doing art, but a lot of times they're not great at art in the beginning. It takes some time and some practice. And if it doesn't look good, often they'll say, "Oh, I'm not a good artist. I don't want to do this anymore." And one thing I love about this is the background is so easy, and it is easy to make it look good. And you put one of these on it, and they have a beautiful picture that they want to
Oh,
hang up or keep or do something with. And I love that. And then they're saying, "Oh, I'm a good artist. That looks really cool."
that's very confidence building. I teach a
Mhm.
history class at our co-op, and we did a Lewis and Clark themed day where the kids all had to bring in something from nature. Just
Mhm.
I didn't specify, just bring in something from nature. And then I had them sketch it like they would in Lewis and Clark's book.
Mhm.
And some of the kids were really frustrated that it didn't look right. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's not the point. The point is to observe
Mhm.
something and write it on paper like Lewis
Mhm.
and Clark did. But yeah,
Mhm.
that was the hardest one. And then probably the best drawing out of all the kids was like a little 5-year-old girl who sat there and like sketched a little fern she'd found.
Aw.
Yeah, it was very cute.
Mhm.
Um, so then you also have a planner too, because I think I have the planner here.
Mhm.
Do you have, and it is like stunning. I love your planner. It's so beautiful and it's so nice for moms. Like it's
Mhm.
got everything you need as a mom. Like I even love that the shopping list like rips out
Mhm. Yeah.
as perforated. It is like so cute. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that and like what kind of like had you put this all together and stuff?
So I've been doing my own planner for years, like many years. I love
Mm-hmm.
planners, but I could never find a planner that worked for me. So I started trying to do my own. And the first couple I didn't love. And then 2 years ago, I made one for myself. It was a toadstool planner, and I put in the watercolor pages and everything. And it was so pretty. I loved it so much. And I printed copies for several of my friends, and they loved it. I put it as free online. And I've just been doing a planner every year since. And I don't always use my planner, but I am definitely more organized when I do. And
Hmm.
so I wanted something that would help me organize my whole life, which that's kind of a tall order.
Right.
But it does have, it has the meal planning and the perforated shopping lists and cleaning zones and perforated cleaning lists, which actually that's one of my favorite parts is the perforated cleaning list because I rip it out and I write down everything I want clean today and I put it on the counter and my kids have to clean
They
and
can
mark
come
stuff
look
off
at
as
it.
they
Yeah.
go. I love that.
We do that for
This,
farm chores. Like we'll sit down as a family and talk about everything that needs to be done on the farm.
mm-hmm,
And I put it in order, like urgent at some point this quarter, and I'll hang it on
mm-hmm.
the fridge. And the kids, when they get done with their regular chores, then I can be like, go pick something off the list and then kind of pick what they want to get done.
Nice. I love that.
It's very helpful
Mhm,
because I'm not having to manage all of it. Like they just know that, like, as a family, we know that list has to be done like that quarter or that month or whatever when we're working
mhm.
on.
So everyone just grabs a little bit as they go.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's nice. I'll even have ones for the little boys, like that's just their list, like, go pick up the trash around the dumpster that gets, like spilled
Mm-hmm.
when the trash guy comes, or, go water the herbs or something like that.
Nice. I love that.
So they can kind of pick one that they are good at. And then they help with the big ones too, but
Hmm.
they're
Nice.
because they're 5 and 7. You're working age.
Hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's true.
Yep. So yeah, I love that with the whole life planner because I had pretty much given up and just do everything in a spiral notepad because then I can do it however I want to do it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, there's also a lot of blank pages in this one because my friend Tima, she's like, "Can you make a bunch of blank pages in here so I can just write in it?" I'm like, "I can." And then her daughter this year said, "I really want packing lists in my teen planner." And I said, "Okay, I will add packing lists." And the first year, I just had one page for the calendar. And again, my friend Tima, she's like, "I use the calendar more than I use anything else. Can you make it 2 pages?" So sure. So actually,
Yeah.
a lot of the really good ideas and things I really love about my planner, other people have asked for, for this page to be tweaked or this, and I love it.
Well, that's
So
the best way because what works for
mhm,
you doesn't always work for everybody else. And when you can kind of blend it,
mhm.
that's
It's
super
true. And there,
helpful.
and there's a lot of things I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I just didn't think about it. Yes, I'd love to add that.
Yeah,
So,
I really love it. It's you definitely have an eye for beauty and definitely catching what the PNW looks like.
hmm yeah, like, and I love the watercolor look. And honestly, if it doesn't bring us joy, we don't want to use it.
Right.
And so everything that I make, I want it to be beautiful. I want it to bring me joy. And it does. Like sometimes I'll go get my planner out just because I want to see the little dangly bookmark.
Right.
So
You know what? I bought a pack of colored pens so that I could write each day in my planner a different color.
nice.
And I used to do it when I was doing real estate and running the business and the farm and all that type of stuff. I would have a different color, like for each area of life that it belonged in.
Oh, I
But
like that.
yeah, at this point, it makes more. I kind of stopped doing that because I was like, well, it all blends together now that I'm not like working in town and I'm not being a 4-H leader anymore, like those
Mm-hmm.
types of things. And so now I do it by day as a different color, and then like long-term projects are written down the side in a different color.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it makes my brain remember it better. I remember when I was in college, that's how I
Mm-hmm.
would write my notes is in different colors. Like when I got home from class, I'd sit there and do my outlines and like, headings are a
Mm-hmm.
different color and stuff. And I could sit there and do a test and almost envision my notes.
Nice. You're very
Because
organized.
are you looking for new ways to advertise your business? I would like to invite you to advertise your business on the Homestead Education Podcast. Did you know that 60% of listeners will make a purchase after hearing an ad on a podcast? Why is this? Because personal connections and credibility from someone they truly trust will give you the best conversions. My podcast has been on the air for over 3 years now, and with an average of 5,000 downloads per episode and tons of long term listeners, you're bound to have somebody who will find that credibility in me. All ad spots will be promoted on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and my weekly newsletter. I have podcast sponsorship spots available that are affordable for all business sizes. And all advertising revenue will be used towards my educational outreach in the form of travel costs, curriculum development, supplies, and the administration of such activities. Go to my show notes now or visit thehomesteadeducation.com/podcast dash sponsorship. I hope to hear from you soon. Sure. No,
We'll
I
go with
have
it.
I have like that true ADHD organization where my brain is can be very organized, but like around me is like piles of stuff. And my husband's
Mhm.
like, how do you find anything in these piles? And I'm like, don't touch it. I know which pile has what.
Nice.
Like,
Mhm.
but yeah, I am very organized in how like the business runs and like our kids' schooling and like all like our finances and everything. But yeah, I don't think I've put clothes away in a dresser in 6 months. So,
Well, that's overrated.
right. You know what? It's our bedroom and I can shut the door and do it my way. And when I travel as much as I do, it's really nice. A lot of times I do the laundry and it's going right back in my suitcase. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I hang my shirts.
Mhm. Yeah, so that they don't get all wrinkled. That makes sense.
Yeah. Um, so do you have any like future plans you're wanting to share or no? Like I'm excited. Like, is this what you're working with? Are you doing more or?
So I'm actually really excited about this one. I'm
Oh,
currently working on this
yeah.
one. It is goal setting and life lessons from a wandering artist. So I when I printed this for my last conference just as a concept, and I only
Hmm.
had 30 pages written. I'm at 85 pages now. It's a mini unit,
Nice.
so it'll probably be about 100 pages total. So I'm almost
Those
done.
mini units are really, I'm writing a series of mini units right now as well, because I don't love the unit study concept because I
Hmm.
don't feel like you get to go deep enough into anything.
Oh, I agree.
But I don't want to write a full year curriculum on like ag accounting because who wants to write a, and who wants to take a full year curriculum on ag
Yeah.
accounting? Like, so I'm doing them as
Hmm.
semester long classes that go really in depth for the high schoolers and more surface level for the younger kids that are more family style.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes
and
a lot of sense.
I see a lot of other curriculum writers doing that right now too.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I love this one because Paul Kane is hilarious. So I just started reading his journal and I'm over there working on my curriculum, writing as I go, and I'm just busting up. And the kids are like, "What? Why are you laughing?" And I'm like, "He's so funny. Listen to this, listen to that." But as I was reading about him more, I'm like, there are so many good life skills that can be taught, like from the life of this artist. And so, um, in addition to learning about him as an artist, and everything that I do, has a lot of pictures and is very colorful, but we're going to be going into like goal setting, like how to, like, if you don't know where to start, because Paul Kane had no idea where to start.
Hmm.
Just began. He knew he wanted to paint the Native American people in the West. And so he just set out with nothing but his paint brushes and his gun and paper. And that was it. He didn't know anyone. He didn't know how to do it. So when you don't know where to start, just begin is one
Yeah.
of my things. But you have goal setting. There's a bunch of workbooks or worksheets in here, which I'm excited about as well. Uh, but one thing before I stop talking about Paul Kane, oh, and I don't think I have it in here. So I came across a picture that Paul Kane painted, and I use him quite a bit in my curriculum. Uh, so I've looked into his life a little bit before now, but I came across this picture a couple times with a man down on the ground, and I'm like, oh, I don't really want to show anything about people dying or whatever, so I just passed that one up. But then one time I looked at the caption and then I started laughing because he was not dead on the ground. It was during a buffalo hunt. He had fallen off of his horse during the buffalo hunt. And then he painted himself face down on the ground with his horse running off the other side. And he forever immortalized that in paint. And
Oh, that is funny.
That's hilarious. Like I loved it so much. I'm like, okay, so an artist who can paint one of his embarrassing moments forever. Like this guy has a great sense of humor and a great outlook on life. And so I pull that into my curriculum as well. So I'm actually really excited about this one. I'm hoping that it will be ready this summer. So I think it will be. I'm getting close to being done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like we'll definitely have to
Mhm,
check that one out as well.
mhm,
I haven't put a lot of like art or art history into our curriculum yet, so that might be a really
mhm.
fun way of doing it because it ties in something we already love, which is like US history and
Yeah.
stuff. So my kids
And
my kids are
there's
fighting me hard this year because I'm making them do like a world cultures type class because they only want to learn US history. I'm like, it's all tied, babies. Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm like, if you do this one, we will. That was like the compromise actually, is if they did finish their world cultures this year, they'd get to take yours in the fall.
Oh, nice. And
Yes.
they're looking
Yeah.
forward to that one.
They're like, I have to keep shooing them out of the books.
Nice. I love
So
it.
I always felt like I feel like that's such a compliment, you know. So because
Mhm.
the kids they're so drawn to it that me being able to like withhold it from them,
To encourage them to finish something else.
yes, it's been very nice.
Very nice. I love that. Well, my curriculum does also have a lot of world history and US history, because and
Good.
like how those affect the Pacific Northwest. But you have to talk about what like different events were before you can talk about how they affected the US. Like what
Yeah.
was the Cold War? I delved into that and like a lot of the world wars, like why were we fighting the world wars? And so you have to address that before you can say and the Pacific Northwest was involved because of all the lumber and all the mining and making
Hmm.
the ships at Bremerton.
You have to understand that big picture. Have you ever read the
Mhm.
book, The Worst Hard Times?
I haven't.
Oh my gosh. It's got to go on your list. It is
Okay.
about the Great Depression, but and then, well, it's more about the Dust Bowl. And
Hmm.
it's only following like five families in one little like spot. It's a corner where like Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas all meet. And
Hmm.
it's following these five families through the Dust Bowl.
Mm.
And it's telling very detailed stories about them. And it was written by a journalist. But then he kind of pops back and forth between what was going on in like the rest of the world during this time.
Oh,
But
interesting.
and like the changes that it brought down to these really small communities that were hit the hardest
Mhm.
by the Dust Bowl. And I swear, I have never read a book that I could not put it down.
Mm.
And I'm a big reader, and I've definitely had novels and things like that that I couldn't wait to know what was going to happen next. But this one, like, I had to stop myself from reading it at night because I wouldn't go to sleep.
Mhm. You'd read it all night.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it's an amazing page turner. And so I like that concept of the what's going on everywhere else and then how
Hmm.
it can affect even the smallest communities and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
But that's definitely a book. I'd put it on the list because it was well, not only a wonderful read, but it really like opened my eyes up more to what was going on in these rural communities during that time.
Nice. I will have to add that to my list.
Yeah, it was good. And for the listeners, I'll link it in the show notes.
Nice.
I there's a large influencer that she was doing a reel recently and her husband's sitting in the background talking to her and he's reading that book and he kind of like sets it down to talk to her and then goes back to reading the book. And I commented, I was like, I love that book. And I think it got like 300 likes just on my comment, you know.
Nice.
And people were
Wow.
commenting
Goodness
like, I
people.
read it, it was a game changer, you know.
Nice.
So yeah, I always enjoy like books that you can connect with that aren't just
Mhm.
inspirational books or something. Like this
Right.
is not
Right.
many people read history books, like just
Hmm.
so.
Hmm.
Well, as we're kind of getting towards the end of our time, I like to ask all of my guests, what does keep growing mean to you?
Keep growing.
It's my favorite one because
Well,
it always catches everyone off.
when I was a teenager, I made a goal for my life to always be a little outside my comfort zone. And I think that goes along with keep growing, because if you're not outside your comfort zone, you're not doing new things. Um, and so I think keep learning, just keep doing new things, keep getting better at things, keep finding new passions. I think that's what it means.
Yeah. I always think that things are said at the right time. And my husband and I were having a very in-depth conversation last night. You know those conversations with your husband. Like,
Yes.
let's not call it a fight, but
Yeah.
and he goes, I went to war and no one has pushed me outside of my comfort zone more than you.
Mm.
And I said, is that a compliment or a complaint? And he goes, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
And he's like, but at the same time, I'm doing things in my life that I never thought I would do had I not met you. And I
Mhm.
just, it was a really, it was an eye-opening place in our marriage too. So I think the
Mhm.
reason I needed to hear that last night was for you to say it today. So that I think that's my growth for the week. So I really
Mm.
love that. All right. Well, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you, where they can get your stuff, like all those good things?
Yes, sparrowhomeschool.com. We have all of our materials on there. We are also at a lot of conferences in Washington, Oregon, and Idaho for people to see things in person. We will be at the Boise Homeschool Conference next Friday.
That's a good one. I went a couple of years
Mhm.
ago.
Yeah. Are you going this year?
I'm not, no. We're going to be in Colorado that weekend.
Oh, okay. That'll be fun.
Yeah, we're doing some kids classes and then I'm the keynote for the Homestead track at the um Colorado or the Denver Rocky Mountain Homeschool Conference,
Nice.
which probably by the time this airs, I will have already been there. So, go back and check my social media and see how it went. But yes, if you get a chance to check out Sparrow Homeschool, I really love what they have. Some really great options for, not only meeting your history needs, but even if you live outside the PMW, I am constantly teaching my kids that you need to be learning about the big picture, which is, I think, what we covered
Mhm.
really well here today. So,
Mhm.
check out what she has, and even just her I was going to say mama planner, but parent homeschool planner. That having it all in one place is really amazing. So, thank you so much for coming today, Tiffany, and I hope you have a great event.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!